This is episode number 47 of the Fine Dining Podcast. Welcome to Nashville.
This is the Fine Dining Podcast. The Fine Dining Podcast. For foodies who love travel and travelers who love food. Here's your host, Seth Ressler.
Hello and welcome to the Fine Dining Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Seth Ressler, and this is the podcast for foodies who like travel and travelers who like food. Each week, we go to a different city and we talk to somebody who really knows the local culinary scene, and we find out everything there is to know. Sometimes we're talking to food bloggers, sometimes we're talking to chefs, sometimes we're talking to event organizers. This week, we are going to Nashville, and we are talking to Angela Roberts, who runs the Spinach Tiger blog. Angela, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, this is going to be fun. We're going to talk to you a little bit about your blog. We're going to find out all about the dining scene in Nashville. We're going to get a restaurant recommendation from you. And finally, we're going to play a game called Out of the Frying Pan. You ready for all that?
I'm ready.
All right. So tell me a little bit about Spinach Tiger. How did you start blogging?
Okay. I started blogging because I went to a potluck and I wasn't too crazy about the food. And I'm like, I just want to meet some people that look at food the way I do. I came back home and just to soothe myself, I said, I'm going to start preparing in my mind my Christmas dinner. And I Googled green lasagna, hit a food blog that knocked me out. I stayed up the whole night studying La Tartine Gourmand's food blog. It was beautiful. It had photography. I mean, the green lasagna was like arugula with homemade pasta, something. I'm like, this woman is me. This is my soul sister. So I started jumping on blogs. It was around Christmas time. And for about a year, I just studied blogging and said, this is what I want to do. I want to write a blog.
All right. I want to get into the city of Nashville, but before we do, I know you've got a trivia question for me. What is it?
Name the candy bar that was created in 1912 in Nashville. It still exists today, and it was the first candy bar that had multiple ingredients. In other words, it wasn't just a chocolate bar that was mass-produced. The first mass-produced multiple ingredient candy bar.
First mass-produced multiple. So yeah, I mean, I think of regular candy bars with just chocolate as an ingredient. Hershey's is obviously from Pennsylvania. Ghirardelli, I think of San Francisco. But if it's got multiple ingredients, we must be talking something like Snickers, Baby Ruth, Mr. Goodbar, something in that vein is what you're talking about, right?
Something like that. Something that's going to have those kinds of ingredients.
Okay. And it started there in Nashville.
Started in Nashville, and it's still made in Nashville.
How long ago?
1912.
Ooh, that's a while.
Yeah, it was the first one, way before Snickers and before Reese's. And
all right, I got to think about this. I don't know this off the top of my head.
Not only did they celebrate their 100th birthday, they had some chefs around town make desserts last year with the candy bar in it.
But it was a big deal there in town when they celebrated their centennial. Okay.
It's still kind of a big deal. They're still making desserts with the candy bar.
All right, let me think about that. So it was a 100-year anniversary of the candy bar. I mean, it's been a big year for Nashville in general, right? You guys got your big TV show there.
Yes, we do.
Congratulations. How's everybody feel about the TV show?
Well, if you're a woman, then you have a heartthrob deacon. I think, I know people in the music industry. I know songwriters. I can tell you 14 years ago, I moved to Nashville, and the guy that was just washing my hair, wasn't even styling it, he was just washing my hair. He actually had a song on the Nashville show.
Really?
Yeah, that is really how things do happen here. You meet somebody, you do not know what is going to happen to somebody or how big they're going to make it. People come with their dreams, and I've been able to see people get their dreams, so it's kind of exciting. So I think because when you have a show that's a whole hour drama, it's not even just a little comedy, it's a whole hour drama named Nashville, that says Nashville's on the map. And I think we love that.
Yeah.
And we ride by the house, too, where Deacon lives. We can ride by it. It's a real house, and we recognize restaurants in there. And then we really want to do, star sighting. We know where they eat sometimes.
Do they actually film the show in Nashville?
Yes, they filmed the show in Nashville, and I hope it stays that way.
Okay.
And then they walk around town, and they eat in Nashville. And the Bluebird Cafe, which is where the songwriters go, and they have, it's like, drinks, not bar food, things like that. That has now become booming again, just booming, to go to the Bluebird Cafe. Yeah, so we love it. We love it here.
I was living in the city of Providence, Rhode Island, when the TV show Providence first came out. And I don't know if you have this moment during Nashville, but we had this moment where we watched, I think it was the pilot episode, and one of the characters was driving home from the airport to their house. And they would show clips of various things along the way. And we looked at that and we went, there's no possible way you could drive that route from the airport to
I see
anywhere.
what you're-
Totally out of order. And we're like, that doesn't make any sense. But I mean,
see what you're saying.
it's, TV show. Is there anything like that you see on the show that went, that's not right?
I think the only thing is I don't think that a diva could get away with what they do on the show. That's more drama for television. But when you see the big house that, let's see, Raina's dad lives in Belmead, yes, that's real. Those houses are real. People live in big houses here.
Now, what is the basic geography of Nashville? I mean, if you're looking at it sort of from a bird's eye view, how does it lay out?
One of the things that I love about Nashville is it has a lot of hills. There is a river, a small river, so people might be able to say, oh, things go, East Nashville is like across the river. But I would think mainly we look at the city of Nashville and how it expands with a lot of hills, and then you go out into the suburbs. And then what's interesting, I live in Franklin, which is a little historic Civil War town, but very upscale, very cute, with a main street that's just like Mayberry. And I'm only 20 minutes from Nashville, straight down the highway. So things are pretty easy to get to. I can be to the other parts of town where I want to go eat everything in like 20 minutes. Everything's 20 minutes.
Let's talk a little bit about, if I'm a foodie coming in, what are some of the neighborhoods that I should explore?
If we're talking foodie, and we're talking to somebody coming in from San Francisco, somebody wanting good food, we're heading to East Nashville. That's the first place we're going. East Nashville has a lot of the little cute bungalows, a lot of those cute older homes that are now getting all fixed up, and it's where the younger hipster is a big word for East Nashville, the young hipster people moving to East Nashville. I love it. I'd love to live in East Nashville because I'd go for the food and the food. Basically the food.
So what kind of cuisine will you find in there?
First of all, there's a place called 5 Points. You can actually walk around. There's not a lot of walk around neighborhoods outside of like downtown Nashville, Broadway, honky tonks, but you can walk around. You can go to 5 Points Pizza. And if let's just say almost any food that you find in East Nashville, it's going to be good to great. It's not going to be just okay. It's going to be good to great. So they have a 5 Points Pizza, which has like the New York style pizza. You can get by the slice, and the slice is going to be like prosciutto basil. Okay, that's what I would recommend. Something like that. It's delicious. There is a restaurant there that I think Margot McCormick is the chef owner, and she started that kind of let's buy locally and cook like Alice Waters, elevating the farm to table kind of idea with a little bit of French, a little bit of Italian notes. And she's very consistent. I think the restaurant is over 10 years old. And I think she started that kind of that trend of just delicious, simple food. And that restaurant stands today. It's still like a great place to go. It's a place I might bring people from out of town to go. Another great restaurant there is the Holland House. You go for cocktails. Oh my gosh, they have the best old-fashioned blackberry lemon old-fashioned that I'm still trying to perfect at home. And they also have delicious food. And that's kind of they took like a garage and redid it. So all of the restaurants are in, that was an old house. That was an old garage. That was an old hardware store. And they redo them, and they're cool, cool, kind of funky. And East Nashville gets a lot of notoriety. Tonight, the Lachlan Table is being featured on the Cooking Channel with G. Garvin. I'm going to be interviewing him later this week. And that's another new, nice, quaint little restaurant. They've gotten some big press with the LA Times and the New York Times. Is simple cooking, just like a really good liver pate, gets big marks. Let's put it with a peach jam, or a peach preserve, and it's getting big marks because it's taking simple food, using the whole animal, and coming up with just great ideas to serve the neighborhood. It's still a neighborhood restaurant. There's another restaurant right across the street called the Eastland Cafe. You've got the Silly Goose, and then right next to it, Famous Jenny's Ice Cream, Ugly Mugs Coffee. They're all kind of situated in these neighborhoods with like, say, 4 or 5 restaurants.
Yeah, so get off the plane. I'm here in East Nashville is the first place we go. Where is most of the music in Nashville focused?
Everybody has to go to Broadway. They have to go down and they have to go to the honky tonks. I've named on my blog, I've actually did a tour of the honky tonks and named all the best places for people to go if you want to go there and if you want to get a bite to eat. It used to be, up until just a couple of years ago, you're a foodie, you go to the honky tonks, but where is there any food for me to eat? And now we have that. The Southern is this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful restaurant that is right down, like just right up off of Broadway, downtown. You can get the best oysters in town. You can see stars there maybe. You can get something like fish and grits. Their motto is anywhere from the South, and that could be South America.
What kind of stars am I going to find walking around Nashville? I assume country music stars.
You would be surprised because we have a lot of, Johnny Depp just bought a house here.
So Jack Sparrow's walking around in Nashville.
Yeah, you get a lot of that. He gets a lot of press, so I almost try to stay away from that.
Right.
Nicole Kidman lives here.
Yep.
Sheryl Crow lives here.
Okay.
So you and then you know what? You don't know who you're going to see because if people don't live here as their main address, they're here for some reason. There's a lot going on in Nashville, and it's not just country music, which we all love our country music. That's part of America. But there's also just a lot of great music studios here. So all kinds of music is recorded here. The Beatles recorded music here. So you don't know who you're going to end up seeing.
Broadway's where we can find a lot of the music, we can find a lot of the stars, we can find some great food there. We've got East Nashville. I have a feeling you've got a couple more neighborhoods you want to tell me about.
There is a new and upcoming neighborhood of restaurants. Might not be upcoming to those who live here, but a lot of people might not know about the neighborhood of Germantown. Of course, it's where German immigrants lived, and then a lot of things in history happened, and that sort of declined, fell apart, got kind of yucky over there. But now there's condos being built, there's lofts, there's restoration of homes, and there's some really cool architecture. There's a church there that's over 150 years old and it's still in operation. And some of my favorite restaurants reside there. First of all, the City House, Tandy Wilson. I can't say enough about the City House, and I will recommend that to anybody that comes into town. It's Italian, but it's not what you expect. It's going to be a pork belly pizza out of their wood-burning oven. It's going to be bread gnocchi. It's going to be fried cheese. It's going to be trout made with breadcrumbs and raisins and Italian flavors. It's going to be a surprise. And it's going to have upscale cocktails, rustic food, urban feel. It just hits every kind of fun note, I think, for modern day eating. And you're going to leave happy and satisfied. Silo is another one. It's elevated Southern cooking. I had oxtails when I was there. It's fabulous. The best old-fashioned of my life at Silo. And they have outdoor seating. Beautiful restaurant because that was a rebuild completely. So
back up. Tell me a little bit about oxtails.
They take the tail, they chop up the meat, they braise and braise and braise. You get such a meaty, beefy flavor. And it's put in a sauce. And I think this one was over polenta, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just like eating, the elevated pot roast in a sense. You're just getting all that really good, rich, meaty flavor. And it's delicious. And I would say, get that on the menu. That's my number one pick.
So this is all Germantown. You mentioned the German immigrants. I mean, what is the ethnic makeup of Nashville, and how did the different populations influence the cuisine there?
Obviously, it's Southern, biscuits and barbecue, pork. We want our greens. Shrimp and grits is very popular here, and I love that. The best shrimp and grits I ever had was at the Mad Platter, and I like to talk about the Mad Platter because they've been around for 15 years or longer. And for a restaurant to stay that test of time, that's a good restaurant. And they were over there in that neighborhood when there wasn't anybody else. And then one of the cool things is they have some new breakfast restaurants there. Swaffles, it's waffles you make into sandwiches, and the Red Bicycle is a great place. So you can walk all in that same little block and you have all of these restaurants. That's a great new place to live.
You said Swaffles?
Swaffles.
That is my new favorite restaurant name. That is awesome.
You should see what they look like too. And then there's the Red Bicycle, which is a crepe shop right across the street. And I think that it might be named after, we have a new thing in Nashville that's new for us, and that's rent. You can pick up a bike, a red bicycle, and you can drop it off in another part of town. So tourists can come in. I always say you find things outside of a car a lot better. You really get to see the sights. So come and get a bicycle and ride around.
And Nashville's very much a bike-friendly town. It's an easy town to get around on a bicycle.
We're not inundated with the kind of traffic that other cities are.
You mentioned a couple. Talk to me about some of the chefs that are rising stars that we should keep our eye on.
Well, I talked to you about the City House, and the chef's name there is Tandy Wilson. He's had either 4 or 5 James Beard nominations. It's hard to believe he's not Italian. I mean, he is from the South, but he knows how to make Italian food. And I'm Italian, and when I say that, that's a really big deal. Now, this year was really awesome for him because he was not only nominated for a James Beard Award, he was in the 5 finalists. So that's a big deal.
That's great.
That's awesome. Now, another big exciting thing happened last week. This restaurant opened up named Husk. And there's already a Husk in, I think it's Charleston. Chef Sean Brock has come to open up this second Husk. We've been waiting for a long time for this restaurant. And for me especially, I'm so excited because if it isn't from the South, he isn't making it. This is a guy born and raised in the South who is taking Southern cuisine to levels no one has ever seen.
Give me an example. Tell me what he's doing with that.
Okay. Just looking at the pictures, they could take a red beet and turn that into a piece of art, but still make you feel like you're eating with your uncle.
Elevated but homey.
Elevated but homey, and they're going to know their animals. But the thing that I love too, and this is close to my heart, is they plan their menu after they source their product. They don't sit there on the telephone and call up and say, well, I want this, this, and this. It's like, okay, we have like 3 pigs and we have a cow and we've got all this organic produce. So now we'll create our menu today. And just to give you an example of where his heart is, he has a sleeve tattoo. It's vegetables all the way from shoulder to wrist. And he's very big in bringing in heirloom varietals, vegetables, some things people have never even heard of. I've probably never even heard of. And this is a big celebration. We are excited to have that kind of restaurant hit Nashville.
All right, so that's just open. People can go check out Husk.
Brett, you need to call like months in advance, I think, for that.
Oh, really? All right, so plan your trip in advance because the entire cast of Nashville's over there eating, right?
Exactly. In their private dining rooms.
Deacon's over there. Any other chefs that we should be keeping our eye on?
We have an event in Nashville called the Iron Fork, and I always keep my eye on who wins. And Jessica Benefeld from Virago was this year's winner. That's another gal. I think she's from Mississippi, and she cooks sushi like I've never seen anything. It's creme de la creme. Is the head chef of one of the most high-end sushi restaurants I've ever eaten in, called Virago. And she's from the South, and she won the Iron Fork. And the secret ingredient this year was maple syrup, which has nothing to do with sushi, And there's versatility, there's talent, there's just craft in our chefs. You can see how proud I am of them.
So what are some of the other big foodie events there in Nashville?
Oh, there is one other neighborhood. Can I?
Sure, yeah.
It wouldn't be fair because it's close to home. It's like a few miles away. And I feel like I just have to mention coming to downtown Franklin and walking around. And I would tell a tourist that likes food exactly what to do. Do a day excursion, walk around the town. It's adorable. You won't be sorry. And there are a lot of little eateries. The Frothy Monkey is a great place to get breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And the best coffee that we have in Franklin, cappuccino, can be found at the Frothy Monkey.
Between the Frothy Monkey, Swaffles, Husk, and Silly Goose, I think Nashville wins the award for best restaurant names ever.
Yay! Well, there's one more in downtown Franklin. If you want to stay for dinner and go upscale and get crazy cocktails, go to the Cork and Cow. It's a beautiful restaurant. The chef has 3 restaurants right in the same little area there, right across the street from each other. The Cork and Cow, Chris is the bartender. Go at 4:00, and he knows his drinks. This is the guy. I should not call him a bartender. Let me back up and call him a mixologist, he can make a drink that will just knock you out.
There's a lot of neighborhoods to explore. We're gonna have to make it a couple nights in Nashville, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So talk to me about events. I mean, you mentioned the Iron Fort. What other great events are there for foodies in Nashville?
We have a lot of food events, and we have a lot of food events that are new, like premiering. In a couple of weeks, East Nashville is premiering Yum East. So I'll be there.
Yum East?
Yum East.
All right. What's that?
That's going to be all of those great restaurants that I was telling you about. There'll be about 40 restaurants. It's a 21 and event over. I think the tickets are $40 or $45, and then you get to eat and drink for 5 hours.
Whew.
And you get to sample all of those restaurants. And this is like, okay, this is Food Neighborhood, Food Central. That is going to be one heck of a night. And it's a new event. So I'm very excited about that. Now, on a bigger scale, another premier event for Nashville is Music City Eats. MusicCityEats.com will give you a lot more information, but it's Nashville's first food, wine, and spirits festival. This is bringing in the big guys. There'll be the top celebrity chefs, Tom Colicchio, Michael Simon, Nancy Silverton, Giada, John Besh, and some others. They'll be coming to Nashville. It'll be this big 2-day event. And then there'll be some of our great chefs participating along and doing demonstrations. Deb Paquette of Etch, that's another great upscale downtown restaurant. She'll be there. Matt Farley of the Southern. There's a really fun kind of weekend pop-up Italian restaurant, Mangia, whose chef and owner is Nick Pellegrino. He'll be there. So there'll be a lot of interactive cooking demonstrations. That's another 21 and over event. It's going to be just amazing time, and this is a big deal for us.
What time of year does that happen?
That happens in September 21 and 22.
Is there a particularly good time of year to come to Nashville?
I think the summer is great because I like the idea of sitting outside, sitting on the patios, having cocktails and walking around. But September is the most beautiful month. September and October, it doesn't rain very much. There's not a lot of humidity. Well, it gets a little cooler and it's beautiful. So September's probably my favorite.
And then the last thing I want to ask you about is, are there any trends that you're seeing there in Nashville? Especially now that Hollywood's come to Nashville. What are they bringing with them?
First of all, Southern is getting a new name. It's being redefined, recreated, and farm to table is getting defined in a way that people can understand it. That's an old trend, but I think it's getting redefined.
So let's start with Southern. When you say Southern is getting redefined, you mean classic dishes like grits or collard greens? You mean things like that are now getting sort of refurbished in a higher end? Or what do you mean by that?
They are going to be refurbished in a higher end, and you are going to find them in restaurants, and you're going to see cuisines mix. For example, it would be perfectly normal to go to a Southern restaurant, but that it says Southern cuisine. It's a chef from the South, and they cook up grits and greens, but in such a, with a different twist. Like there might be some gnocchi with it. Oh, let's put some gnocchi and let's get some braised rabbit and mix it in with our gnocchi, or put braised rabbit on a ravioli with they might even put a little bit of turnip greens in there. It wouldn't surprise me. So we're mixing some of the cuisines, and we're still celebrating the Southern dish, and not being so heavy or so greasy. I mean, not that that's not bad sometimes. I mean, but you know what I mean. I mean, eating it with a more modern approach. Still cooking in a cast iron, but with a little bit of a more modern approach.
And then farm to table. Now, I have to imagine you've got fantastic farms around Nashville there.
The farms here, I love my farmers. We have a Franklin Farmers Market down the street, and since I go a lot, I've gotten to know these local farmers and the love that they put into the farms. We have a farm, Devlin Farms, is an organic farm that everybody knows here. They supply a lot of the restaurants, so there's a lot of trustworthiness in the vegetables. And I've become a lover of three things, that because we get a lot of them, and that's the kale, sweet potatoes, which I've decided you can make 10,000 wonderful ways, and beets. We have convinced people who didn't like beets that they can like beets, because we just find a million ways to make them. And then they can be made very gourmet too.
So we are going to come back in just a moment, and we are going to talk about your restaurant recommendation.
Oh, good.
We are also going to find out the answer to your trivia question. We're going to find out what candy bar just celebrated its centennial there in Nashville. Before we get into our restaurant recommendation, I want to mention tastetrekkers.com. This is the nation's first food tourism conference. It's an event for anybody who plans their vacation around where they want to eat. If that is you, if when you are traveling, you're like, look, I got to find out all the best places to eat when we go, this is an event for you. We're going to show you a bunch of new cuisines from a bunch of different places so you can explore the world through food. It's going to be awesome. You can find all the details at tastetrekkers.com. I've been hard at work putting it together, lining up all the speakers. We've got people speaking about chocolate from Madagascar, Peruvian and Bolivian cuisine, honey, different honeys from different regions. But, I don't know if you know this, over in Europe, they actually taste honey the way we taste wine here. And so we're going to have somebody come in and talk about that. We've got somebody who's going to talk about diners from all over America. We're going to talk about the history of rum in New England, all sorts of cool things. Please check out the speakers online. You can find all the information at tastetrekkers.com. The event is happening in Providence, Rhode Island, September 20th, 21st, and 22nd. I hope you come out and join us. Thanks so much. We are talking to Angela Roberts of the Spinach Tiger blog. She is in Nashville, and we're talking about the Nashville dining scene. Now, you had a trivia question for me. Tell me what it is one more time.
Name that candy bar that was created in 1912 here in Nashville, still exists, and it was the first candy bar with multiple ingredients that was mass produced. In other words, it wasn't just a chocolate bar.
It wasn't just a chocolate bar. Okay, so, we're thinking things like Mr. Goodbar, we're thinking things like Snickers, we're thinking things like Baby Ruth, we're thinking things like 100 Grand, Payday.
Keep going.
Kit Kat. So I haven't named it yet, you're telling me?
Nope.
Oh, Butterfinger, I don't think it is. Mounds.
Nope.
Can you tell me what one of the ingredients is in it?
I'll give y'all the ingredients. Caramel, nugget, peanuts.
Caramel, nugget, peanuts.
Chocolate.
That's not a Milky Way. Milky Way doesn't have peanuts, right?
No. And legend has it that somebody's grandfather around here wouldn't ask for it by name because he didn't like saying the name.
Is there a candy bar with a dirty name that I don't know about?
No, I think he just thought it was silly.
So tell me, what candy bar is from Nashville?
It's called a Goo Goo Cluster.
So I don't actually know what a Goo Goo Cluster is.
Oh my gosh, we'll have to get you some.
Tell me what a Goo Goo Cluster is.
And it's round. That was the other thing that was different. Instead of being, like I guess the long chocolate bars, and even since then, like the Snickers is long and the Babe Ruth is long. It's a round, and they have a couple different flavors now. I think one is made with peanut butter, but it's a round, and then it's got the nugget and the caramel and the peanuts, and that's all the things people love. And there you have it, Goo Goo Cluster.
So tell me about the 100-year celebration for Goo Goo Cluster.
Different restaurants in town prepared desserts. I think they even had an event around this, but they would use the Goo Goo Cluster in a dessert, either making a sundae, making a cake, making a pie. So it was like, a really fun, big deal. So people keep this close to their heart.
Every episode of Nashville that I watch now, I'm going to look for a Goo Goo Cluster somewhere in the background.
There you go.
Okay, I asked you if we're coming to town to give us a restaurant recommendation. Tell me what you picked.
So you mentioned the name Silly Goose, and people's eyes light up. You can almost see them reliving their food memory and calling it their favorite restaurant. Especially, this is a real foodie restaurant, but it's not fancy. It's not pretentious. It's very warm and welcoming, but it's just that I think foodies appreciate the different ways that the ingredients are put together. And it has a great little story to it. The owner and chef, Roderick Bailey, has taken it from a place that was known in 2009 when it opened just for sandwiches and couscous to elevated farm-to-table dining with a refined menu that has evolved as his space was able to expand. When he opened, he had 2 George Foreman grills and I think a panini machine because there was no space for kitchen. So he was so creative. That's how he came up with all these wonderful sandwiches and couscous. And then as time went on, he was able to get more equipment into the kitchen. And I remember speaking to him one night when I was in there, and he says, stay tuned. There's going to be some great entrees coming. And he sure was right.
Wait, this guy built a restaurant out of George Foreman grills and couscous?
And it built a reputation. See, that people are hungry when somebody really is good. They will celebrate a chef that knows what he's doing.
Wow, I'm impressed.
The good news is it's worked. 4 years later, he was named Best New Chef of the Southeast, People's Choice, by Food and Wine. So again, an honor. And he's humble. He's back in the kitchen cooking. You just see him. It's an open kitchen. You would just think he's one of the staff. You don't know. I love that. Very approachable.
Very cool. All right. So I walk into the Silly Goose. Tell me what the vibe of the restaurant is.
Shabby chic marries urban with red bandanas as dinner napkins, cement floors, and farm-type tables, mismatched chairs. But there's, in one wall, there's just this beautiful buffet that looks like it belongs in a southern mansion, and that's where they set their, basil lemonade and their waters and everything. And that just, to me, just sets a warm tone to the place.
Very cool. All right, so I walk in, I sit down, I'm looking over the menu. Where do we start? You got an appetizer that you like?
Well, let me say this. You're going to be hungry because you've waited for an hour over at Ugly Mugs. Just so you know, go 1 hour early.
Can we make reservations or?
Only with a party of 6 or more.
Gotcha.
But it's worth the wait. Okay, so the appetizer that I would recommend, I love the Karate Man. Now, he's got names to things. Here we go with the names again. The duck pastrami with the cherry gastrique and dried cherries. And there's a little bit of greens on the plate, like a little bit of salad on the plate. That is a great appetizer. And what I recommend is if you go with a group of people, share your appetizers because everybody wants to taste a little of this or a little of that. That's a great place to do that. The other one that I think is great, it's not on the menu as an appetizer. It's the one couscous he keeps on the dinner menu, and it's called the King Kong. And it's probably the most popular couscous there. It's shrimp made with curry, and all of the ingredients are in a big thing on the wall. He's got it like he's made King Kong kind of a thing in the restaurant, and I would say definitely get that. And then you have to get the cauliflower soup. Now that sounds boring and bland. Get it anyway because when you see it, it's so beautiful. There's green chive oil that's drizzled on it with a manchego crisp, and it's got some smoked almonds in it. So you've got the crunch and the smoke, and you've got the chive oil, and you've got that cheese crisp. It's delicious. It's wonderful. These are the things. These are must orders when you go.
If I have room, what do you recommend for a main dish?
Silly Goose is a global restaurant with a lot of diverse ingredients, a lot of different flavors, but this is funny. I'm going to recommend what I've eaten there more than once, and that's the pack mule. It's 5-spice dry rub pork ribs. It's got pap holes, hoe cakes, which is a corn cake, and then you've got a little green apple salad, a little bit of mustard greens, orange dried chili sauce. It is delicious. Now, I had my friend get it the last time I was there, and I ordered something else, and she said, hey, these are the best ribs I've ever had, and it is not a rib place.
Wow. What are we pairing with these dishes? What do you recommend, and what do they serve in terms of beverages?
In terms of beverages, what's interesting is they didn't have a liquor license for a long time because they know the sandwiches and couscous, so people ended up bringing wine, and you still can do that, but they do have wine on the menu. They have hand-selected, they have about 6 reds and 6 whites, so it's very limited, but let me tell you, because it's limited, it's very carefully selected. There will not be a bad bottle. And their most expensive white wine bottle is wonderful. It's a Chardonnay. It's $50, well worth the price, but that's the most expensive of the wines. And then it goes down from there. So it's still moderate, but very well selected.
What about dessert? What do they serve?
It's kind of funny because Silly Goose is located right next to Jenny's Ice Cream, which I don't know if you've ever heard of Jenny's Ice Cream, but it's really famous in Ohio where she's from, and she needed some fruit, that would harvest a little earlier than Ohio. So she kind of teamed up with some Tennessee farmers. So it's quasi-local, if that makes sense. It's really a company out of Ohio, but using Tennessee products. That's why it's in East Nashville, and it's just the line is out the door for that ice cream, and it's delicious with things like buttermilk cherry, just delicious ice creams. However, Silly Goose makes their own ice cream. So the other night I had the beet honey ice cream, and then we're back to beets again, and it was delicious. So I would say because they make their own ice creams and they get really, really creative, their ice creams are a great choice.
So ice cream. So we can even do an ice cream face-off if we want. We can start with some ice cream at Silly Goose and then go next door, huh?
Well, I think that's a great idea. I like that idea a lot.
And what about price? How much are we going to drop on a meal here?
Maybe appetizer and entree would come to only about $35. So let's say if you do a little of this, little of that, it's probably about $50 a person. And that's with dessert, and that's not bad.
Yeah, so we're not going to break the bank here.
Not going to break the bank, no.
Great suggestion. Are you ready to play a little game?
Uh-oh.
This game is called Out of the Frying Pan. Here's how it works. I am going to ask you for a series of rapid-fire recommendations. Just tell me the first thing that comes into your head, okay?
Okay.
Name the restaurant with the best view in Nashville.
I would have to say the Watermark because it has a beautiful outdoor patio. It's kind of like elevated rooftop, and they have delicious food, and they have a beautiful view.
You mentioned the fact that there's a lot of celebrities there in Nashville. If I just want to go out to a place where I can see some stars, where am I most likely to see some celebrities?
Well, I've heard that a lot of people hang out at the Southern. They have some back booths, some meetings going on. They have some private dining rooms there. So I think you might meet them at the restroom, but I think that's a good place to start.
What if I want to go to a place for after-work drinks? Do you have a favorite place to go get a cocktail?
Yes, I love cocktails at the Holland House because they have those old-timey vintage cocktails, and they have a happy hour, and Thursday nights would be a great time to go because it's happy hour all night.
I heard you mention barbecue. First of all, what is Nashville barbecue?
That's a good question. I know Memphis is more the dry rub ribs, and I would say when I think of barbecue and we're going out for barbecue, we're looking for pulled pork. There's just a lot of pulled pork here. I mean, you're going to have ribs too, but people often order the pulled pork. So and I think too, it's another one of those things that's evolving.
What about food trucks? Are you seeing those in Nashville?
If I wouldn't have known better, I would have thought Nashville invented the food truck scene because it's huge here, and they have a lot of food truck events. And, I wanted to mention this. I'm glad you asked me. NFTA, we have an app for food trucks. Food trucks here are awesome.
So do you have a favorite food truck that we should check out?
I do have a favorite food truck. Riff's Fine Food Truck is one of them. And the other one that has turned me on to biscuits is the Biscuit Love Truck. And this guy can make biscuits, and he does something with peanut butter and jam and biscuits, and it's just incredible. But he does something else. It was the first place that I've had Nashville's hot chicken. This is one of our regional dishes, hot chicken. It's very famous. And he does a biscuit with hot chicken. It's awesome. I should say that if you do come to Nashville, get hot chicken.
Most places I go, the chicken is hot. What is hot chicken?
This was created at a place called Prince's in a kind of old, seedy part of town, but got a James Beard Award for classic food. Now the hot chicken places are popping up all over. I just ate at one called Hattie B's, which is awesome. It's fried chicken, and then they turn up the heat. It's not like buffalo chicken wings. They turn up the heat on it with their secret spices and cayenne pepper, and it goes from at Hattie B's, for example, it goes from mild to shut the cluck up.
All right. So when you say hot, you mean like spicy hot?
Spicy hot, yeah.
All right, one last question. Let's say I'm out, enjoying the music of Nashville late. Is there a great place to go for late night food?
Yes. There's a couple places to go for late night food. If you want to go upscale, you go to the Sunset Grill. That's in the Hillsborough area, and they, cater to a late night. Or if you want to go and get one of the best cheeseburgers in town, go to the National Underground. That's right on Broadway, down in where all the honky tonks are. It's called the National, and I've written about that one on my blog also. And deem that best burger in Nashville.
Thank you very much for playing out of the frying pan. You did fantastic. And your restaurant recommendation is Silly Goose. I love these names. It's located at 1888 Eastland Ave in East Nashville. People can find it online at sillygoosenashville.com. And then what about you, Angela? If people want to find you online or on social media, how can they do that?
You can find me at, it's spinachtiger.com. My Twitter is at spinachtiger. My Pinterest is Spinach Tiger. My email is spinachtiger@me.com. So I'm pretty easy to find.
I detect a theme. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great. I've learned a lot about Nashville.
Thank you. It's been fun. Thank you so much for having me.
My name is Seth Ressler. This is the Fine Dining Podcast. Couple of show notes before we go. You can subscribe to our podcast in iTunes or leave a review even. That helps us out quite a bit. You can also follow us on Twitter, and we're on Facebook. And finally, if you want to be a guest on the podcast, you want to come on and tell us about the food scene in your town, we would love to have you. Just click the Contact Us link and send us an email, and we'll invite you to come on the show. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next time.
This is the Fine Dining Podcast. You can find links to the places mentioned in this episode at tastecheckers.com. Tastecheckers.com. Thank you for listening.